Shalom. Assalamu alaikum. Abaragani. Alafia. And Ashe. All the greetings and salutations in the various languages and religions that we happen to find Black people in America involved in. We're coming live from the Temple of Mercy Association, located in the Grand Crossing community of Chicago, Illinois, at 616 East on 71st Street, under the leadership and guidance of our founder, Brother Minister Raheem Kassir Aten, our First Lady, Sister Makita Aisha Aten, and our co-founder, Brother Minister Omari Jahi Aten. We bring you peace and paradise in those different languages. Today we're going to be brief, but we just want to touch on the subject of Kwanzaa and the principles of Kwanzaa and why Kwanzaa is important for Black people to celebrate in America today. The principles of Kwanzaa are designed and were given to us as a means for us to practice self-determination. And in that practice of self-determination, much of the challenges that we face in our community can be solved. Because if you really looked at and dwelled at the challenges that are in our community, if you come off of the surface and you go to the root of the problem, most of the time you will find that the root of the problem is an economic issue. Our children are suffering from an identity crisis. The number one leading cause of mental illness among adolescent children today is the over-sexuality of children and them being introduced to it too early. And so all of the plethora of these things that are going on in our community, self-determination would seem like a simple suggestion, but when you look at the diversity of the thought patterns in our community, you might say, where do we find the unity inside of that? Well, unity has to be based on principles. Unity has to be based on standards. It has to be based on morals. And we really enjoy the principles and the standards that Kwanzaa has set for us to practice and observe, but it's something that shouldn't just be practiced December 26th through January the 1st, but it should be practiced 365 days out of the year. The late, great founder of the United American Progress Association, Dr. Webb Evans, used to tell us, for the future of these children, they should not have to grow up and look for anybody but us to get them a job. What does that mean? That means as part of the Kwanzaa principles, we have to be creative. God created us in a garden to be creative. He gave us all the elements of creation that we needed, and we gave us the examples of how creation is created, how it's nurtured, how it's developed, how it's harvested. And so if we would just go into our creative minds, I believe that there's no other creative mind on the planet better than the one that's got melanin in it. Why? Because creation best serves as a sign of nature. And who is more natural to the planet, to the fowl, to the fish, to the animals, to everything on the planet that God created than us? That sun doesn't give us skin cancer. I'm sorry. That sun doesn't burn us up. I'm sorry. Unless you have a diet that is full of chemicals and poison and red number 40 and dyes and things that aren't good for you and too much salt and too much sugar. But if we ate from the garden that God asked us to eat from, the sun would be our best friend. It would give us all the vitamin D and different things that we need to be able to survive. So when we're looking at nature and we're looking at creativity, why is it that everything that's created around us, it seems to be when we get involved, we dominate it. We dominate the world of entertainment. We dominate the world of sports. Well, why aren't we dominating the world of creativity that benefits us? Because I know somebody will say, well, we are creative. Who you think created the light bulb? Who you think created the stop sign? We created almost everything, but we don't benefit from our creation is the challenge. Even in us having children, we don't benefit from our creation. Somebody else do. Because we raise them up, sacrifice, struggle, send them to school, they get a good education, and then we send them to somebody else's corporation to make them rich. While we, on the other end, do 40 hours a week for 40 years, and then are forced to live off of 40% of what we lived check to check while we was working, and we're broke. But yet that company that we worked for ain't broke. They family ain't living off of 40% of the revenue they was making while they were working. So our creativity has to come home, and it has to start at home. We got to come out of the celebration of consumerism. Anything that makes you a consumer, where you feel like you got to spend all your money to show your love for somebody, and then turn around and give the credit to a pedophile. It's the pedophile did this for y'all, baby. The pedophile brought these presents down the chimney. I know y'all don't like that type of talk, but we work hard for our children. Should we not receive the credit and praise for what we do for our children? Should we turn that sweat, them tears, that hard work, that sacrifice that we have to make to do for our children, should we turn that credit over to anybody? I think we need to turn it back to who it belongs to. The person that created us. And that's your mother. Because she provided for us. Why do we want to give the credit to the Easter Bunny? Why do we want to give the credit to the Tooth Fairy? Why do we want to give the credit to everybody but us? I was talking on Facebook about the song Jingle Bell. And I kind of got took back because I was in a group. When I did it, it wasn't like the regular public post, but I was in a group called I'm Black and I'm Proud. So I'm thinking I'm among Black people. And so I mentioned something about one of the uses of the jingle bell when they used to tie the thing around the slave's neck, and they would put bells on the side of it if he got caught running. You know, they would try to do that so that if you tried to escape, the bells would warn them and they could come out and make sure you didn't escape, right? And so I was mentioning that, and behold, here comes the European. I said, I was in a group, y'all, that says I'm Black and I'm proud. What was the European doing in there? And he thought he was correcting me, but he only further enraged me and proved my point. Because he said Jingle Bell was a song that was created for the celebration of Thanksgiving, not Christmas. Whoa. So you mean to tell me that Jingle Bell was created for Thanksgiving? Well, what was Thanksgiving, Mr. European? It was the slaughter and destruction of the Native Americans, of our brothers and sisters. So if that's what it was meant for, and you were successful in what you did to the Native American, now you slid it over to Christmas. And I understand, as being taught by Minister Raheem Kassed-Aten, that Christ means the Black child. So when you take Christ out of Christmas and you put an X there, X means extermination. Mas means child. So when you're talking about the celebration of Christmas, now you're saying that you move Jingle Bell, the war against the Native American, over to the Black child. And you know, I had to go into my little poetry slang because I was at Brother Adverb and Mono's Poetry Baby Friday, and they got this saying when a person is on the mic, let them cook, go ahead, cook them, cook. And so I told the European, I said, well, the suffix gene, as taught to us by Minister Raheem, means war. The root word, because in the Temple of Mercy Association, we study etymology because we know every letter, shape, sound, and numeric value contains esoteric information that completely transcends the contextual meaning of the word. So J-I-N-G means war. Bell, we understand, is a warning, right? Ding, 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 ding. It's a warning. When something happens in the house, the fire alarm goes off, it's a bell. You hear the train, you hear a bell, so the train don't run over you while you're trying to cross the track. It's a warning. So if we look at the song, it says jing, which is war, bell, warning, jingle, bell, warning. Then it says jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride in a one-horse open sleigh. So I said to the European, what does slave mean? Because it didn't say sled. It didn't say horse carriage. It said sleigh. So it wasn't describing the vehicle or the object being rode in. It was describing an action. So if we're talking about Jingle Bell being referred to Thanksgiving, yeah, y'all came in there with horses and y'all slayed the Native Americans. After y'all came in and offered blankets as a care package for the Native Americans. And inside of those blankets, you had the smallpox disease, which wiped out the majority of their population. And then Pocahontas herself even died of the smallpox disease, and her European husband took her inheritance. So we know what you all are about. We know what you did. You came in and gave them spirits. Just like you're doing black people in our community today, wine and spirits. I don't think y'all understand what kind of spirits is in our community inside of these liquor stores. There can't be a great intent to it. And then ask yourself, why is wine and spirit right next door to the daycare that our children go to? Anybody ever thought to ask what type of subliminal suggestion that gives to a child to have to walk past a liquor store every day and see their favorite black artist on the side of a window or the side of a building, and even now, Megatrons and billboards that play all day and all night to our subconscious mind, talking about Hennessy and this and that, and almost everybody black that we look up to in the entertainment industry, as well as now in the sports industry, everybody seems to have a liquor deal now. You can't get rich and be famous no more without having a liquor deal. So now, because they took away your ability to do concerts and they took away the CDs and DVDs, and it ain't no more music in the music business. Now the new deal is, let me give you this alcohol. Let me give you this Hennessy. Let me give you this Ciroc. Let me give you this Bel Air. Let me give you this. Now they done moved into the podcast world now. So now the podcasts are coming on, and every one of them got their own particular liquor plan. And then you get old Diddy decide to want to be treated fair and equally because he on the so-called same footing as them. And so now he decided to sue them for racial discrimination. And then all of a sudden, 1,000 bottles of baby oil come out of his house, allegations from here to South Side to the West Side, all over the world. And now they're using this as a tactic to scare the rest of us that are in that world not to come against us good Europeans. Stay in your place, boy. Kanye, stay in your place. We'll distribute them shoes, but we're not going to teach your people how to make them. Kanye wanted a distribution deal. He wanted to practice cooperative economics in Chicago. He wanted the manufacturer of his shoes to have a manufacturing hub in Chicago, and he wanted to teach manufacturing of shoes to young black children in the inner cities. He wanted to have a manufacturing hub in Atlanta, in the inner city, to teach young black youth and underserved communities how to manufacture shoes. Wait a minute now, boy, you ain't staying in your place. We're going to distribute them shoes, but we ain't hiring you black folks to make them. Because if we ever learned how to make them, how soon would it be before we stop making theirs? Right? They don't want us to prosume. See, we consume. We being conned. Consumption is a con. Prosumption is another thing. It's a practice of self-determination. We oftentimes talk about reparations and what's owed to us for the 400 years of chattel slavery, and America wrote a check that came back insufficient funds, says Dr. King, and where's our 40 acres and our mule? What I would employ to black people that we practice cooperative economics, and that we practice something that Professor Chinweishi taught us called internal reparations. What you can do for yourself. External reparations, yes, it's owed to us. So I don't knock those that want to fight and beg and whine for it, but you begging somebody whose checkbook is in the negative $1 trillion. If you look at this country's GDP and you look at how much money we in debt, I don't think they can afford to write us a check. And if it did, it don't have no gold and silver backing to it. So we wouldn't do nothing but get American currency that most of the times we take the $1 trillion that we already getting and we return 96% of it right back to them in less than 4.5 hours. Because we practice no self-determination. We're brand whores. Whatever brand it is, oh, I gotta have it. We don't think, well, it's just some material. All they use to make it is a sewing machine. All it is a pattern. You put the material on a pattern, you cut it out, and you sew it together. Why aren't we doing that anymore? Why aren't we manufacturing our goods and services? You mean to tell me that Black people in 2024 going into 2025 don't have enough intelligence to make and sew our own clothes? Because if we don't, and we continue to leave it in the hands of somebody else, you see what type of fashion they putting out. The new fashion is naked. The new fashion is show off everything. Don't have no shame about yourself. And for all of us that keep running around telling us, stop shaming people, stop shaming people. No, we gonna shame you because, as my grandmother used to say, you should be ashamed of yourself. But since you ain't, I have to be dutiful in my responsibility to put shame back on you, to put shame back in your heart, because shame allows you to have something called a conscience. Shame allows you to be able to accept some correction. And as Black men in our community, God created us to provide and protect. But it's a hard task when you're trying to protect something that you can't correct. And so we got to start practicing those 7 principles of Kwanzaa. You all got to go and do some due diligence and ask yourself, why is it that 96% of the businesses in our community, the people don't live there, number one. Number two, they don't look like us. Number three, the money that they make doesn't stay in our community because they take it home to where they live. The Arabs don't live in the Black community. The Chinese people with their rice don't live in the Black community. The Mexicans that's on the corner with the corn and the carts are owning the community. It's a difference. And they're waiting for the takeover. They're waiting for us to be pushed out. They're waiting for their turn to be next. Well, I shouldn't even say that. That's what used to be. They have already taken their turn called next because they practice self-determination. They practice cooperative economics. You can drive past one of their restaurants on a holiday and it could be Christmas. And I'm talking about it'll be packed, lying around the corner, and they don't care no more about it being no holiday. They're going to support their businesses in their community. Their businesses is going to open to feed the people in their community. Not us. Black business going to close. It's a holiday. I just want to know, with all these holidays, what are we celebrating? What victory are we celebrating? Or are we just caught up in the pagan holidays of this world and we just going along to get along, and we just so insecure about ourselves and our identity and who we are and whose we really are that anything that just comes about, we'll just accept and we'll go along to get along? Well, that day has to stop because the results don't prove worthy to us and our future and our children. Xing out the Black child. Then we put Jesus as the reason for the season. Well, they X'd him out too. They hung him on a cross in Calvary. Who is they? Who is the Sadducees, the Pharisees, and the scribes? Who were those people of that day? What was their ethnicity? Why was there a king that came about that did not know Joseph? These are questions we got to ask ourselves when we're going through and studying our scriptures. We have to put ethnicity back to people. They got us so far gone now that you got people in Congress arguing right now to change the term from mother to child carrier. Women can't even be called mother anymore. They want y'all to be called child carriers, not mothers. So we talk about identity for Black people. They're trying to erase every opportunity they can to change the identity and the nature of what God created us to be. So now the surrogate person who carries the child that's non-binary and transgender, now because they don't want to step on the toes of women too much, we're just going to take mother out. We're child carriers, so that makes us equal. All this equality talk. How dare you do that when that was God's greatest creation? That was his agent of creation. That was his agent of change. That was his greatest addition to man. And you want to take that away from us too? We can't have nothing, not even our physical identity, let alone our ethnicity. Because if you really look at it and you want to give us an ethnicity, most of the names that you use don't really describe us. I'm sorry, Africans. But Louis Africanus was an Italian European. That doesn't adequately describe the melanin in my skin. I'm sorry, Amerigo Vespucci was a European. That really doesn't too much describe the melanin in my skin. So if we're going to give ourselves an identity, just like they're changing identities for things and taking away that right and that privilege, then I think we need to practice a little self-determination in defining what we consider ourselves. I think we need to change and let our people know the truth. Ain't no Holy Spirit. It's a black woman in the Trinity. They teach it in the Catholic Church. The Catholic Church accepts the black Mother Mary, the black baby Jesus, but you come to the black church and God doesn't see color. But that same Catholic rule that you up under, that you abide to, that you go kiss the Pope's ring, he got a black Mary and Jesus in his church, but you telling us don't worry about it. You put a Christmas tree in yours, and we know what the Bible says about a Christmas tree. It says, be not dismayed by the signs in the sky, nor following the custom and tradition of the heathen. He that go into the forest and cut out a tree and bring it back and chasten it and adorn it with silver and gold. That's your Christmas tree being described in the Bible. But the old preachers say, don't go there. Don't go there. This ain't about all that. This about them babies. You're right. It is. That's why they called it Xmas and they took Christ out. It's about them babies. It's about the extermination of the young black male, the young black female. It's about the extermination of our identity. It's about the extermination and genocide of an entire race of people. Tyler Perry put a movie out, The 6'8ers. And black women, oh, we just love that movie. 1942, fighting for the right to be equal inside of the government of America, wanting to be in the army and go out and fight the war. And the whole movie is predicated on a black woman's love for a European man. And because he gets killed at war, she wants to fight Hitler because he killed the love of her life. With all the stuff that was going on with black people in 1942, that was the only fight you could pick. You wasn't picking the fight of the slave master's foot on your neck. You wasn't picking the fight of segregation in our communities. You wasn't picking the fight of white organizations and Ku Klux Klan coming together and murdering black business owners, not just any black person, but black business owners because they felt like they were a threat to them in their competition. They wasn't just hanging any black people, they was hanging the business owners in the community. You didn't have no gumption to pick that fight. You wanted to take your fight all the way to Germany for somebody else who's right here in your face mistreating you and your people. But you want to go all over the world and fight for everybody else's issues. We want to fight for this issue, that issue, this issue. But don't nobody want to fight for self-determination. Don't nobody want to fight the prison, the school to prison pipeline. Don't nobody want to fight the black on black crime in the community. Don't nobody want to fight the liquor store industry, putting liquor stores next door to the daycares. You walk past that every day. You don't have to go too far to pick a fight. You don't want to go down the street to the gas station, to the Arab that got your boys out there selling drugs. You don't want to go fight him. You don't want to fight the devils that bring guns into our community and drop off crates of them in the middle of our community, and then your baby end up shot at a birthday party, 12 years old. You don't want to fight that fight. Y'all want to go every place else but home and fight. You don't want to fight for market share in your community. You don't want to fight for the businesses in your community that will create the jobs for your children so your young men won't be out here talking about carjacking somebody and hitting the lick. We don't have no fight for us, but we got fight for everybody else. It was a nice movie, but the undertones in it wasn't black enough for me. It wasn't purposeful enough for me. We got too many issues to be dealing with everybody else's issues. Their urgency or emergency should not become our urgency to deal with that. Let them people fight each other. We got our own fight on our hands that we're not winning, that we're being wiped out by the droves. And nobody's saying a mumbling word about that. But we got fight for everything else. We want to fight for the Democratic Party. We want to fight to turn Chicago red. We want to fight for this, fight for that, fight for grant money, fight for tip dollars, fight for neighborhood opportunity grants. But you won't fight to take $1 out of your pocket and fight the urge to go down the street to somebody that don't look like you, to drive all the way across town to the black-owned grocery store in Forest Park and spend your money there. We running around buying groceries and giving it out to people but won't buy the groceries from the black-owned store. And I don't want to hear all them excuses. Well, they ain't got this and they ain't got that. No, that's because they ain't got your support. If they had your full support, then they can have everything else you talking about you want. But we don't think like that. We don't practice self-determination. All these gifts y'all went out and bought. Any of them designer names of a black person? Did y'all buy any S.B. Fullers? How about some Marcus Garveys? How about some Elijah Muhammad's? Did y'all buy some Malcolm X's? What designer did you buy? Was it Dior? Was it Louis Vuitton? Was it Gucci? Was it Louis? None of it benefits your community? Then we shouldn't purchase it. And if we are going to purchase it, we should be purchasing it so that we can examine it, so that we can infiltrate it, so we can go find out who manufactured that shoe. We can change LV to GOD and put it on the same designer shoe. We can create our own. We are the most creative people on the planet, but yet, when we're given a creation by us, for us, we don't seem to go all in. You know, there was a time when this time of year would come around, man, I would see so many happy Kwanzaas and this and that. It was almost equal to the Christmas stuff. I guess that's because they, gave us another token called Juneteenth. And so we was black for in the middle of the year, and it kind of lasted to Christmas. But I didn't get one happy Kwanzaa text this year. I didn't get one happy Kwanzaa post. It's almost obsolete, the amount of Kwanzaa events that we even having right now. I only seen 3 or 4. Malcolm X, I seen DuSable. I seen the one they did out at Dr. Conrad's track and field. But I ain't seen no other Kwanzaas. I know we attended one today over at Miss Brady over at Pastor Mitty College Church. But where's the celebration for us? Where's that same energy for us? But I saw a whole bunch of pajama pictures. I saw a whole bunch of Louis under the Christmas tree as an expression of love. All I'm doing is pleading with us. As the late, great Dr. Webb Evans used to say, for the future of these children, can we please create some jobs? Violence needs a job. And with that, I thank you all for listening. Please join us each and every Sunday here in the Grand Crossing community of Chicago, Illinois at 616 East on 71st Street. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Ashe.